right. We have our jurors back, counsel, and parties present. And we have Detective Lord back at the stand. Again, I would just remind you that you're still under oath. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not a trial without a technical issue, but I think we've got it resolved. And so with that, Ms. Watt, are you prepared to proceed with cross-examination?
Yes.
And do you want your screen displayed at this point?
Please.
All right, here we go.
Okay. Okay. Is it Detective Lord?
Yes.
Okay. So Detective Lord, do you recognize the software I'm looking at here on the screen?
I do.
What is this?
This is actually Magnet Axiom.
Okay. Is this, I think earlier in your testimony you described how you have software that can take all the data off the phone and allow you to more easily go through what's on the phone.
Yes.
So, can't see my mouth. So these would be examples of everything that's on this phone being iPhone 8 Plus. So do you recognize this as Karina's iPhone?
I do.
Okay. And so, like you said, there's a lot of different what we're calling artifacts.
Yes.
Okay. So that each artifact is a piece of data that's on the phone.
Yes.
Okay. So the questions I have for you are just sort of related to what I have found using this software, obviously without your expertise. But you mentioned just recently about a search history. So we've got this Safari search history. And is this right here, is this showing us what you're talking about? We've got a visit here on February 13th and then nothing until June 1st.
Yes.
Okay. And are you able to tell us whether the person actively deleted that or just wasn't using it? Do you know how that happens?
I can't say.
Okay. And then you mentioned that previous to that, there was always a text, or I'm sorry, not a text, a search regularly. But when I was, let's see, looking, sorry, I'll get there. So we're going to December of 2020. And we have a gap here as well, October 11th through December of 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I mean, there are other gaps on this phone. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, just not as big of gaps. And that's why I said, you know, frequently, almost every day, not necessarily every day.
Okay. Right, because, I mean, then here, obviously, again, shorter gaps, but here's another 5-day gap. About a month. Bottom line, there are other gaps.
Yes.
Okay. Looking at let's try. You can't, if you turn off the screen, then I can't see it. Do you have like a paper copy of your PowerPoint or anything? I can probably. Okay. So on here, we can, so we've got 2,400 Snapchats that we take from this phone. That's what this is telling us?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
What this screen is showing us is that on Karina's iPhone 8 Plus, there were 2,409 messages still somewhere in the phone's data.
Yes.
Okay. And then if we search, am I searching? I'm searching on the wrong. 2758. So then I know that on your PowerPoint here in your demonstrative, you did, under Houston Danker's name, you have a number associated with it underneath his name. Is that his like Snapchat ID or number associated with his messages?
Yeah, it's the user ID.
Okay. So then this is how we see on here, on the actual software, where the messages are, right?
Yes.
Okay. My question for you is, so we've got Snapchat messages here. Right here, we have Snapchat biome app intents. So what are these?
Those could be other deleted messages. It doesn't show you what the message is. So it just shows the phone that things are being sent out.
Okay. Just correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that a biome app intent is something that is generated on your phone anytime you send a Snapchat.
Possibly.
Okay. Because on all of these, as I'm sure you'll notice, it only says sent.
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain, I'll sort by date here. So clearly we can see there's a lot of other messages, but we just don't have content for them.
Correct.
Okay. What's that? Do you have any explanation or idea for how, obviously the phone knows that these messages are sent. Do you have any idea why we can't see the content of the messages?
I cannot. I didn't write the source for this application.
Okay, so that comes down to how Snapchat, how their software is written.
Yes.
Okay. But from this, at least for a given time frame that this phone was tracking, we have 876. Would you say it's safe to presume there were at least 876 messages going to Houston?
Yes.
Okay. And this doesn't tell us how many are being received without the content.
Correct.
Okay. Did you notice a similar pattern on Houston's iPhone 7, that we have some content, but then there's also lots of these app intents?
I don't recall.
Okay. I wanted to ask you as well, you mentioned that in your PowerPoint, you mentioned that these messages, at least I believe some of them, had been deleted. Can you just tell me where on all of this, how do you know that?
If you go back over to where it says carving, no, back to the right.
Okay.
It'll say, carving versus parsing.
Which one means what?
So the carving means that it is not in the database, it's in the not used part of the database versus the parsing. If you were to then pull out that database, you can actually see those messages within that.
Okay. So then I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. If it says parsing, it's not deleted?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess I don't know. Well, that's just the entire conversation table. Why does this show up as parsing? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, because the table still exists because that last message that was yup was not deleted.
Okay. Another question for you. When I was looking at the messages here, each message appears to have a message ID. Can you tell me or us what that means or indicates?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Because at times they appear to be in some sort of sequential order, but you don't know.
No, and it could, no, I don't.
Okay. Okay. You found a lot of searches on Houston's phone, both before and after the event. Did you find similar messages on Karina's phone? Or not messages, I'm sorry, searches?
No.
Okay. You testified, I think I might be done with the screen for now, Your Honor. You testified at the beginning that you had an HP computer, 3 iPhones and for Karina, and 6 iPhones for Houston Danker. Did you also get a watch?
I did.
Okay. And would that have been a watch that was being worn by Karina the night of the murder?
That's what I was told.
Okay. Were you able to get anything from that watch?
I was not.
Okay. So when you're talking about steps then, and saying that within a 10-minute interval, she's taking 170 steps. Is that generated? Do we know? Is it generated from the phone or from the watch?
Those are from the phone.
Okay. Oh, was the watch some sort of, like a smartwatch at least?
Yeah.
Okay. And then with regard to the steps, is it accurate to say that when your phone is tracking it, it's always doing it in 10-minute increments?
No.
Okay. I'm looking at, all right. So then does that mean, so tell me how the time starts and the time ends then. Please explain that.
So when it detects movement is when it starts, and when it detects movement has stopped, then it stops.
Okay. So I suppose in the 10-minute interval we have here for Karina's phone, then the assumption would be that she starts moving at the first part of the timestamp.
Yes.
Okay. The wind-up Jake text message conversation, I assume you don't have any information who that person is?
I do not know.
Okay. Are we at all presuming that that's Houston Danker or no?
Not that I know of.
Okay. And then I saw we had screenshots of some sort of hunter education website. Am I correct that that website was last visited on December 17th of 2020?
That's what it stated.
Okay. Did you get up? Okay. And again, you're just producing the information that you find that you think could be relevant to the case. You don't have any other information about why these things might be on somebody's phone.
No, that's correct.
Correct, thank you. On your PowerPoint, you had some text messages, or I'm sorry, Snapchat messages that come from Houston's iPhone 7. Were those all of the messages between Houston and Karina from his phone?
I think on the first one, there was some other messages, if I'm recalling correctly, that were just small talk, but all of them have been put as the exhibit.
Which exhibit are you talking about when you say they've been put in the exhibit?
I provided all the whole conversation in a PDF format.
Okay. Do you have that pulled up? All right, I'll move on for a second here. I think you might have answered this, but do we have any answer as to why we have some messages in March, then a gap, then some messages in mid-June, then a gap on Snapchat?
I can't say.
Okay. You had in there that there were some deleted photos the morning of, and you said those are just pictures of children?
Yes, both of those photos appear to be screenshots from Snapchat that someone sent. And yeah, both of them were pictures of kids.
Okay. On the Axiom magnetic software, where do you find those pictures? Are they on that?
Yeah, so if you were to search the image name, you can locate them.
Okay. As for the live photo that was viewed, do you know what that was?
Yes, that photo was just a kid running towards the camera.
Okay. I want 194. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I want to bring this up there. What's been marked as both the state exhibits, but I've also marked them Defendants A and Defendants B. Do you recognize these?
Yes, I do.
What are they?
These are their Snapchat conversations.
Do those, what's been marked as Defendants A and Defendants B, do they appear to be the reports you would have generated directly from the software?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I would move to enter into evidence what's been marked as Defendants A and Defendants B.
Since they were state's exhibits, I'm not anticipating an objection, but Mr. Ringel, any objection on behalf of the state?
That's correct, Your Honor. No objection.
All right. Defendants exhibits A and B are admitted.
Okay. The one that I noticed in particular, and I can't put your PowerPoint back up right now, but do you remember the conversation about here's hoping for a rogue semi today? No, big accident, no survivors.
Yes.
Okay. And that was sent by Karina, March 8th, 2021 at 7:04 a.m. I'm reading from here, so,
Yeah.
okay. There was then a following message sent within that same minute from Karina. My mind is pretty fucking dark and twisted too, honey. Divorce me. Do you remember that message?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, she's talking about, well, I won't characterize it. Oh, on some of the messages on the PowerPoint, or not the messages, the Google searches, maybe you already answered this, but some didn't have dates or times. Is that because the phone didn't know, or how's that work?
I don't know. It's if things are deleted too. Sometimes timestamps can go away. So
If what gets deleted?
if the URL gets deleted, so whatever you searched, if you delete the history.
Okay. Is it fair to say then that what we have here in your PowerPoint and with the addition of these is pretty much the sum and substance of what you found on these phones that was relevant to this case?
Judge, I'm going to object. I don't believe this witness is in a position to testify to what's relevant in the case.
Okay.
Overruled. Witness can answer.
everything that I presented in the PowerPoint is.
Okay. I was just making sure there wasn't something else that you thought that you would have thought was important that wasn't included.
Not that I
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Mr. Engel, redirect.
None, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Detective Lord, you may step down.
I forgot to ask you if you wanted counsel.
The state calls DCI agent Ryan Herman.
All right.
And Judge, there is going to be some media associated with this witness, so we'll need to get it reconnected.
Come on up, sir. And go ahead and have a seat. I'll swear you in once you're seated. All right, if you would raise your right hand. Sir, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth? All right. And then for the record, can you please provide us with your first name and your last name and spell them?
Ryan Herman, R-Y-A-N, H-E-R-M-A-N.
All right. And before we go any, did you need to reconnect anything, or you think you're good to go?
I'll take care of it in a moment.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, then whenever you're ready, Mr. Engel.
Thank you. Agent Herman, could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Ryan Herman, H-E-R-M-A-N.
Just want to double check. How are you employed, sir?
Good.
How are you employed?
I'm employed by the Iowa Department of Public Safety, Division of Criminal Investigation. I'm a special agent assigned to the Major Crime Unit in Mason City.
How long have you been employed by the DCI?
I've been a DCI agent since April of 2011. I've been assigned to the Major Crime Unit since October of 2014.
Could you talk about your education and training that qualifies you for that work?
After high school, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. I spent 4 years serving in the Marine Corps as an infantryman. In the summer of 2006, I got out of the Marine Corps to attend Mankato State University in Minnesota, where I achieved or earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Mankato State University. In the fall of 2010, I was hired by the Iowa Department of Public Safety as a DCI agent to attend the 35th Basic Academy in Des Moines. I graduated from the academy in April of 2011, and then I was assigned to the Gaming Bureau. Every casino in Iowa has DCI agents at the facilities, so I was in that role for approximately 3.5 years prior to being promoted to the Major Crime Unit in October of 2014.
Can you talk a little bit about your general duties there at the DCI?
DCI agents, we are an assist agency, so we assist local jurisdictions, sheriff's offices within my unit specifically, typically felony level cases. We can work anything from general death investigations, homicides, officer-involved shootings, theft cases, child pornography cases. Usually it's felony level cases.
So when you're assigned to investigate a case, what type of steps are you taking? What type of investigation do you typically do?
It depends on the investigation. It's really, we'll conduct interviews depending on the circumstances. We may, a DCI agent will process the scene themselves, depending on the circumstances. We may utilize the crime scene team out of Ankeny in some cases. We do everything from interviews, neighborhood canvassing. I mean, it just depends. Each case is a little different.
All right. Were you assigned to investigate the death of Ryan Cooper in June of 2021?
Yes, I received a phone call at approximately 6:30 a.m. on Friday, June 18th, 2021, from my direct supervisor, Special Agent in Charge, Rick Ron. and Ron is R-A-H-N. SAC Ron informed me that the Tama County Sheriff's Office was requesting the assistance of the DCI with a death investigation in rural Tama County, and asked that I make my way to Tama County to assist. And then he informed me that I would be the case agent in this particular case.
What is a case agent?
A case agent is the direct liaison. So when a law enforcement agency calls the DCI, an agent will be assigned as the case agent to assist directly with that department. So in this case, I was the direct liaison with the Tama County Sheriff's Office. I would have been essentially the face of the DCI for that case. You are the individual that gives out leads, makes certain decisions in certain cases. You're essentially the manager of that case for the DCI.
Gave a brief outline of the information that you had received from Rick Ron, the special agent in charge. Did you have any additional information at that time?
I got information that we had a male decedent identified as Ryan Cooper, who was found dead in his recliner chair in his living room, and that his wife, 3 children, and his brother were present when the Tama County Sheriff's Office arrived on scene.
Is that essentially the sum of the information you had then at that time as you began your investigation?
Yes, from where I lived at that time to my arrival in Toledo, Iowa, it took about approximately an hour and a half, so there was a phone call and that information was provided to me. So I didn't get any more information until I arrived in Toledo.
Were the initial steps then, or the initial step that you took in your investigation?
The first thing I did was interview Karina Cooper, which would have been the wife of Ryan Cooper.
And heading into that interview, what is the nature or purpose of that interview?
She was present, or she was the one who had found Ryan, and we wanted to basically get an overall information of what happened, if she saw anything, heard anything. The person who makes the 911 call is typically a pretty good place to start. And we knew that she was present. Obviously, she's the wife of Ryan. It happened in their home. It's a logical place to start.
At this point, the information that you provided, is that your understanding of essentially that was more or less the sum total of information law enforcement had collectively?
That's the information that I had. I would say that's accurate to say that law enforcement as a whole, that's about the information that they had.
Did you know at this point anything regarding the cause of Ryan Cooper's death?
No.
We just heard extensive testimony regarding Snapchat communications, cell phone searches, search history, etc. Were you aware of any of that information? Is that information that was available to law enforcement at the time that you did this first and second interview, or did that take place much later in time?
Upon my arrival to begin the first interview, I didn't know anything about that. There was information that came in during my initial interview and then throughout the first few days of the investigation, but then the majority of what you're speaking to is later in the investigation.
So to be clear, the information we just talked about with regard to the cell phones was not information in possession of law enforcement when you completed these interviews?
Correct.
So you stated that you interviewed Karina Cooper this was on June 18th?
Yes, it was the morning of June 18th.
So approximately what time did that interview take place?
9:39 a.m. is when I started my recording.
We've heard testimony that Karina Cooper called Aaron Cooper at around 4:30, so it's approximately 5 hours later.
Yes.
Where did the interview take place?
The interview was at the Tama County Sheriff's Office.
What's your initial approach to the interview? What information are you trying to determine?
Really just trying to find out what Karina knew, what Karina had heard, get some background information on her, on Ryan, on the family, really just general information, and then ask her kind of what's going on, find out what's going on with Ryan's death.
When you started this interview with Karina, was this a criminal investigation or essentially unknown?
Unknown.
So did you then ask her, when you first met with her, what had happened that night?
Yeah, so the conversation started, we spoke briefly about her children, the marriage, the fact that Ryan and her had been together for approximately 15 years, and they had been married for about 12. I think we briefly talked about how he grew up in the Toledo area, or Traer area, and she grew up in Dysart, which in proximity is fairly close to each other. I got a lot of background information for Ryan essentially being a farmer, and she ran a hair salon out of the a building, an outbuilding on their property at the residence.
What's the purpose of obtaining all that information?
Background, just to, you know, try to get to know them, try to solicit information from her, just general information of, you know, who's all in the house, who's in the family, things like that.
After you've obtained this background information, did you then move forward to attempting to find out what she knew about the death of her husband?
Yes, we spoke. One of the questions I had right away was, you know, why is Ryan sleeping on the recliner? What's the situation with that? So we spoke in depth about how he has a snoring problem, and he sleeps on the recliner and has for an extended amount of time. I believe she said, essentially when their youngest child was born, which would be, she would have been about 4 at that time, that he had been sleeping on the recliner basically that entire time, or sleeping in the living room that entire time, also due to the snoring. And she indicated that there's always children in the bed, and there has been children in the bed with her for a number of years.
Did you ultimately ask her then the series of events that led to her discovering her husband's body?
Yes, she said she ran through kind of the breakdown of the evening. I believe she said that there was her oldest son had a baseball game. They returned from the baseball game and kind of did their baseball game kind of ritual of everybody taking showers, everybody having dinner. She said that she was the last one to take a shower, and she thought that she had gotten into bed around 9 or 10 o'clock p.m. on that evening. She said that she sits in her bed and reads on a Kindle, the tablet. I think everyone knows what a Kindle is, but it's a tablet where you read books. And she was reading on her tablet, and she got up to use the bathroom, what she thought was around midnight, maybe 11:30, goes back to bed and falls asleep. And then she wakes up again at approximately 3 a.m. She's not really sure exact time frame. At that time, she uses the restroom a second time, and then goes back to sleep. She noted that when she got up at around the midnight, 11:30 time frame, the TV was still on, I believe, and she heard Ryan snoring. And then again at 3 o'clock, she remembers that the TV was off, the room was dark, and she heard Ryan snoring at that time as well. She says after she uses the restroom, she goes right back to bed, lays down, falls asleep, isn't in what she would call a deep sleep, but is awoken by a crashing sound. She said that she instantly thought it was, they had a wire shampoo caddy that sticks to the wall in the shower where you put your shampoo and your soap. That caddy or that wire rack had fallen in the bathroom a few days prior, and she remembers because it scared her, and she thought that that was maybe what that sound was. So she goes into the bathroom, checks out, sees that the caddy had not fallen, goes in, walks out of the bathroom, walks into the kitchen area, looks out the kitchen window, and doesn't see anything out of the ordinary out in the dooryard, and then proceeds to go back through the house to the living room. She goes in the living room where Ryan is. She made a comment that she was kind of upset that he didn't get up because she thought this loud noise, and she didn't know what it was. And usually he gets up when something like that happens. And so she goes in there to turn on the light, and then she at first thinks he's just sleeping, and then she notices all the blood.
Did she talk to you about her actions after she first noticed Ryan?
I remember she said that she, at one time, looks on him to see if she sees any markings or any, she can't understand where the blood is coming from. I remember she said that she freaked out. She screams, which I believe the scream caused her son, who was sleeping upstairs, to come downstairs. And she was concerned that something had happened or somebody was maybe in the house. She wasn't sure. So she locks the older boy into the bedroom with the two younger children. And I don't recall if she goes in with them at that point, but she ends up at one point in the room with all three kids locked in the bedroom, and she places a call to Aaron Cooper, who is Ryan's brother.
Did she explain to you what she thought might be going on at that point?
She didn't know. She thought possibly somebody was in the house, something had happened, and she was scared that somebody was in the house.
And you had said that there was some conversation about her attempting to determine what happened to Ryan. Did she tell you she was unable to determine what had happened to Ryan?
Yeah, she said that she looked on his face and couldn't tell if there was any bumps or bruises, cuts, anything like that. She couldn't understand why he was bleeding so much.
Prior to this interview, had you listened to the 911 call or reviewed the dispatch logs that indicated information provided by Karina Cooper to the 911 dispatcher?
I believe I listened to the 911 call during a break that I took toward the latter part of the interview. During this part of the interview, I don't think I had listened to the 911 call at that point.
And we've heard or received evidence in this case that she told the 911 dispatcher that her husband had been shot. Did she ever tell you that?
Not during that first interview.
And instead she stated she wasn't sure and was trying to look and figure out what was going on?
Correct.
So she said, as part of your interview, are you attempting to determine a timeline of events?
Yes.
What's the purpose of attempting to develop that timeline?
It allows us to have a better idea of the totality of everything, from the time the 911 call happens to the time the interview happens. Let me back up. From the time that the incident happens to the 911 call, we want to know kind of what that time frame is between discovery of an incident to the 911 call.
So she says she hears this noise, she gets up, she believes it's something in the bathroom, she looks out the kitchen window, and eventually she goes in and discovers Ryan's body. She starts screaming. She's retreated with Cade to a bedroom, is that correct? And
Correct.
called Aaron Cooper?
Correct.
Did she tell you what she did next?
I believe it was kind of chaotic for her as far as how the events played out, but she at one point climbs onto Ryan Cooper, and she said she remembered when Aaron shows up. Aaron comes in from the dining room area of the house behind her, and she's laying on top of Ryan.
Did she tell you why she did that?
I don't recall.
Any additional information she was able to provide you about her initial response to finding Ryan Cooper dead?
Not that I can recall.
In discussing Ryan's sleeping patterns, did she talk about whether he was a heavy sleeper or if he would be up moving around in the night?
She said that he typically falls asleep fairly early, and then will sleep maybe till like midnight, and then be up between midnight and 2 or midnight and 3 and watch TV, and he would be up and about throughout the evening. That's about all she said about his, as far as how deep he sleeps. I don't think we talked about that.
Okay. Did you recall her making a comment that he's up roaming in the night like his father?
Yes.
Did this information prompt any further questions or inquiry on your part?
I guess nothing specific.
So at this point, you're really just trying to gain an understanding of what had occurred from Karina.
Correct.
Did you ask if there was anyone that she was aware of that would want to hurt Ryan?
I did. She said no.
What's the purpose of asking that question?
At this point in the investigation, we don't know exactly what is happening or what had happened. There's still a lot of investigating to do, a lot of information to gather. And so in the event that this is a violent crime or something with malice, we want to know who are Ryan Cooper's enemies, who are the people that he's fighting with, who could possibly have done this.
And she stated that she wasn't aware of anyone?
Correct.
Did you ask her if she had any firearms or weapons in the house?
Yes, she did say that when she went into the bedroom with the kids prior to calling Ryan's brother Aaron, that she attempted to remove a firearm from a small safe that was in her closet. She was unable to do so. She said that she's not familiar with the gun, has never shot the gun, doesn't know how to use it, and she couldn't even get the safe open to retrieve the firearm.
Did you ask her specifically if she knew how to shot the gun or if she's ever used it, or did she volunteer that information?
She volunteered that information.
As part of your interview, are you making observations of her demeanor?
Yes.
For what purpose?
Just to see how she's reacting to questions or how she's just her general attitude during that conversation.
Any initial observations that you thought were important at that time?
She seemed to be doing a lot of crying, but I didn't see a lot of tears.
Were you familiar with the name Houston Danker when you went into this interview?
On the break in the interview, I think about an hour into the interview, we take a short break. And I think during that break is when the name Houston Danker is brought to my attention.
And what information did you have about Houston Danker?
It was talked about while Karina is being interviewed, Aaron Cooper is being interviewed at the same time. And Aaron brought up Houston Danker's name, and that there was a Snapchat that had been viewed by Ryan on Karina's phone, and it was from Houston, and it was details or the information on.
Sustained.
Judge may respond. Agent Herman, you received some information that it sounds like there was a Snapchat message or something involving Houston Danker, and this information was provided by Aaron Cooper, correct?
Correct.
Did that prompt you then to ask Karina about Houston Danker and her relationship with Houston Danker?
Yes.
What was the purpose of you asking that question?
The information was that she may have had an affair or that there was some sort of romantic relationship or physical relationship between Houston and Karina.
How or why would that be relevant to your investigation?
Well, typically husbands and boyfriends don't get along very well, typically. And so there's the information that Karina might be seeing someone else, and maybe Ryan knows about it. There could be a conflict between those two that Karina didn't disclose to us at the beginning of the conversation.
The interview that you completed then on the morning of June 18th with Karina Cooper, was that recorded?
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to view the recording that was completed?
Yes.
Did it fairly and accurately capture the conversation you had with Karina Cooper on that morning?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, the state would move to admit and publish portions of move to admit and publish State's Exhibit number 197, which is portions of the interview completed with Karina Cooper.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, then State's Exhibit 197. Is that right?
Correct.
All right, 197 is admitted, and we'll see if we can get this to play.
And Judge, I will need to retrieve that HDMI
All right,
cable
why
from
don't
the
you go ahead and do that? Let me know when you're ready.
Wait, it's catching up.
Judge, to correct the record, that is actually Exhibit 196 on the filed exhibit list.
All right. So any objection to 196?
Still no objection.
All right, and we'll unadmit 197. All right, 196 then is admitted.
I'm going to be showing you the initial portion of your video where you were discussing what had occurred on the morning of June 18th, 2021.
You ready for me to try to publish this?
Yes, Judge.
All right. All right, we don't have the big screen. Let's try it again. There we go.
So it's showing the desk.
Judge, it's showing the desktop screen versus the exhibit. I think because we had switched the HDMI cable to defense table.
So is there something you were wanting me to do?
Give me one moment. I wasn't sure if it was an issue on your end or ours.
You said that last night your daughter was kind of fussy and.
Okay. My options up here are left and right.
Understood.
I'm on left, so. All right, let's go off the record for a second. Hopefully this will be quicker, ladies and gentlemen. Just sit tight. Feel free to stand up and stretch.
Yeah, I just went to them. It was, well,
All right, we'll try it again. Yeah. Seat, ladies and gentlemen. You able to get to where you need to go? Hopefully we can get it back. Mr. Ringo, I don't want to rush you. You need a minute? Should we just take a break? Yes, sir. All right. Was thinking maybe we'd not need another break, but this is 3 o'clock. We'll just take our standard mid-afternoon 15-minute break now. And again, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would remind you of that admonition.